find that sometimes people don't have much, but they enjoy what they have. And if you're a sadhu, you enjoy what you don't have. That is a good thing, because if you don't have something, it's one less thing to take care of, Yeah. So you enjoy not having that. But, sometimes what happens, even when you have everything, it's easy to focus on what you don't have, right? It's very easy to focus on the half empty rather than the half full. So on that level, in terms of the relative ananda, so to speak, the ananda that is expressed through things and seen or associated with things, that ananda that is attributed or associated with certain conditions, including the states of mind, for that I suppose a certain grace is incumbent, necessary, you can say. But you don't really need anything to enjoy the ananda associated with the self, because it's really, that is the only ananda there is. The Swarup ananda is you. The only grace is the grace of knowledge, And then talking about grace is like chicken and egg, which came first, And so it's an endless question. It's a good question. Oh, Adele is saying namaste from her house. Namaste. Is this the first class for this track? Is this the first class for this track? Yes, it is. Okay. Which class? This is the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Yes. Everything is very nice and slightly precarious. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pavani is not here. Pavani is coming. Did she say she was coming?
She acknowledged that today class was here.
Okay. Maybe she'll come a little later or next time, as long as she knows.
She knows.
Yeah. Good. We're almost close to the ending of the first chapter. We spent, I think, 6 classes on verse 12. Very involved, beautiful. And really after verse 12 there is nothing to study, one would think. But then if you wonder why there isn't anything to study, verse 13 has been given. Mantra 13 is given for that reason. Because there is, because we saw in verse 12, etad jneyam, this alone is to be known. What is that? Nityam evam atma samstham, that which is changeless and that which is within oneself, which is focused on, based on oneself alone. There is nothing outside. Na ataf param, there is nothing other than this, there is nothing outside of this, there is nothing like this, there is nothing unlike this. To what? Veditavyam, to know. Kinchit, nothing exists. And then, so what is it that there is to know? Bhokta, bhogyam, preritaram. What is bhokta? Yours truly, Yeah. Yeah, the experiencer. Now hot, now cold, now hungry, now angry. This fellow, bhokta. And what is bhogyam? That which is to be enjoyed, objects of enjoyment. And preritaram. Who is preritri?
The ruler.
Yes? Yeah, you're looking at it.
No, Bhokta,
So, Bhokta, you knew, correct. Preritaram means the one who has set up this dichotomy between the Bhokta and the objects of enjoyment, And the one who has set up this dichotomy, who is that? Ishvara along with Maya Shakti, the one who is enjoying our discomfiture here as jivas. By keeping the bhogya vastu, what are the bhogya vastu? The objects of enjoyment slightly out of reach. This is the whole thing. The bhokta jumps up and down, the bhokta is upset, and the bhogya is always out of reach. And then if it's not out of reach, then you don't want it. And even if it's not out of reach, then you can't have it because of a health condition, Yeah. Like the person who has diabetes working in candy factory. I mean, what's the use, Surrounded by sugar, can't have it, There is all these kinds of things. So there's always this laugh that there is a setup, which is one's own karma, which is also, at the level of the jiva, you call it karma. At the level of the order, you call it Ishvara, Preritaram, second case. And matva means knowing that this setup is a spoof, that this setup is like a drama. What you think is trauma is really a big drama. Knowing this and seeing through this dichotomy and seeing through the setup, what happens to the person? Sarvam proktam trividham brahmametat. So understanding that in and through all these three things is just that constant unchanging thread of self-awareness, that presence, that consciousness which is Brahman alone, which is manifest as the cruel preritra and the greedy bhokta and the slightly out of reach bhogya vastu. It's all one and the same. Nothing else remains to be known, nothing else remains to be said. Correct? Say wrong. Wrong. Why? Because mantra number 13 is there. Because now we have to ask ourselves, and we have to ask of this Upanishad, that why after giving the entire vision do you still have the alacrity to go on? I mean, keep quiet, enough. If you've given the knowledge, there is nothing beyond this, you yourself said. Na kinchidasti veditavyam, you yourself said. Quote unquote. Nothing is there remains to be known. No residue is there to be understood, to be assimilated. This is the vision, this is it. This is the spoof. That you think that you are chasing after something, and the chaser is you, and that which is out of reach is also you, and the one who has done this setup where you are always chasing some carrot which is out of reach is also you. Knowing this, there nothing remains to be said. And why does the Upanishad continue? The Upanishad continues because there is always a question afterwards. What is the question? Maybe the Purvapakshi, or may not be, maybe a sincere person. Purvapakshi is a doubter. This person may not have a doubt. This person really believes in what the Upanishad, the Veda is trying to tell, is a Vaidika, is wanting to understand, but has a question. It's within the fold question, And what is that question? I know I am Brahman. How do I experience it? Now you have told me, Bhokta, Brahman. Bhogya Vastu, Brahman. And then Preritra, the one who has set up this dichotomy between Bhokta and Bhogya, also Brahman. All right. Now how do I feel this Brahman? I want to pet this Brahman. I want to hug this Brahman. I want to bring this Brahman close to myself. I want to really experience this Brahman, And what shall we say to this, Read the Upanishad should really say, read the first 12 mantras. Idiot, murkha, mudha. Mudha doesn't mean fool, okay? What does mudha mean? Deluded. From muh to delude. One who is on the wrong path, deluded. So, oh ye deluded one, hey mudha. Go back and recite the mantras 1 to 12, and all your doubts should be answered. But the Upanishad, is much more compassionate than all of us. And so what she does is she just gives the answer to these kinds of questions, like how to experience this. Because really speaking, the person who is asking this question, this quintessential question, I know I am Brahman, I know Bhokta is Brahman, but I still run after things. I know Bhogyam is Brahman, but still I'm sad that I cannot reach a few things. And how do I, experience Brahman in that question is a hidden question. And what is that hidden question? How do I assimilate this knowledge? How do I behave? How does my behavior transform in relation to what has been gained? In relation to this knowledge, there should be, I'm saying should because often there isn't for a long time, there should be a transformation in my behavior. Because if I know I am Brahman, I should behave like Brahman, correct? How does Brahman behave? How does Brahman behave? Very well. The answer is because Brahman doesn't have any pressure to achieve anything. Brahman doesn't have any pressure to put someone else down. Brahman doesn't run after things. In fact, Brahman doesn't know how to run. Apani padam tat. No hands, no feet. How will the poor thing run? Brahman doesn't talk back. Why? Because Brahman, he has no, there is nothing. There is no, what's that? That desire which is the fuel oil for fueling all activity is not there. In the opening, Upodghata Bhashya, in the opening Bhashya of the first chapter, first Valli of the Taittiriya Upanishad, Adi Shankara says it's a wonderful opening chapter, Karmasya karmanah pravrittihi kamasyat preritatvat, he says. So all activities begin with desire. All activity, even the most quote-unquote mundane or the secular, ranging from the mundane to the spiritual. Whether you talk about Vaidika karma, spiritual activities, puja, yajna, all this comes with desire. Or you talk about chewing gum, that also comes with desire. What desire to chew gum? What desire do you need? I want to relieve some pressure in the inner ear. That's what people say, especially if you are flying on planes. This relieves the pressure in the inner ear. So that's a desire. So every karma is propelled by kama, correct? So therefore, this connection between kama and karma is something which is so basic to the jiva, to the individual, that it is very difficult to cut that cord. It is very, very difficult to see that, because that's where the things get muddled. Because we don't see the karma behind the action. We just see the action, and then the person is plummeted into a vortex of action called samsara, a life of becoming, as Pujya Swamiji says. You keep becoming, which is a very unbecoming, pursuit, really. And so this life of action, contrasted with this knowledge, where it is very clearly said that when you know what is what, there is nothing to do, and there is nothing, because there is nothing further to gain. And why isn't there anything further to gain? Because there is nothing further to desire. Why isn't there anything to desire further? Because at this desire, the primal desire is to be free of longing. That's the only desire that humankind has. It's the only desire. No, but I like, I like coffee. Coffee you may like, but really speaking, if you trace all the desires, you want to be free. That's the only desire. Free of what? Free of being bound. Bound by what? By all these dependencies. What are dependencies but unexpressed desires or expressed desires? That is the dependency. Be free of the props of desires. So to be freed of the illness of longing is the primal human quest. And then therefore the Upanishad says you are not the desirer at all. That bhokta, the experiencer, why is that, bhokta brings in karta, correct? But why is bhokta emphasized? Because when you do something, when you are a karta, what is it for the sake of? For bhoga. Bhogaya karma, correct? So you become karta in order to be bhokta. And then When you are bhokta, it doesn't turn out correctly most of the time. What you do needs revision, needs alteration. A snip here, a stitch there, something has to be edited, abridged, punctuated because it didn't come out right. Then you do more karma. It's like you make something. You make, a dish. When you add, this happens a lot in Indian cooking. You add salt. Ayyo, it's too much salt. Then you squeeze in a lemon, then, too sour. Then you add more salt. Then you taste a little bit, then you squeeze in some more lemon, Then you add some more salt. It's endless. So too, this bhoga, karma bhoga, karma bhoga, karma bhoga, each thing is building off of another. Like a double helix chain. It's just endless. It traps you in this life of becoming. And then the knowledge frees, but then what happens? There is somebody there, the same person who's gaining the knowledge, sitting very still during the Upanishad class, is the one who is running around attached to the bhoktritvam during the rest of the 23 hours, correct? And that is the gap. It's the gap bigger than the Grand Canyon. It's a huge gap that has to be filled. It's not the gap of not knowing. That's not the gap. Because you know. You know I'm not karta. You know I'm not bhokta. Even if you don't know, you have to say, nod your head and say, yes, yes, I know. Because you've been studying long enough. I'm not the doer. I'm not the experiencer. And as an interim, I say Bhagavan is the doer. And then after that Bhagavan is revealed to be the truth of this I alone. And so in any case, I'm not the doer. So doing happens. And so that much I know. But then there remains some kind of a gap between my behavior and my knowledge. So this is one problem. The other problem is, it is understood, but the understanding is not firm. It's like standing in quicksand. You think you have a firm footing and you try to sink the toes in, and then you have a sinking feeling. Then you have a little more firm footing. One more class has happened in the meantime. Then you grab a little more, The toes have now become talons. And then what? Then you feel a little steady, and then the ground gives way again. So this is the second kind of problem, correct? So in the first instance, what I need is, the first one, where I know but my behavior is not in keeping with what I know. I need more what is called naischalyam, chitta naischalyam, a focus, a single-minded focus. Nishchalasya bhavam, naischalyam. Chal means chala, to move. Nischala, non-moving. Naischalyam, nischalanes is naischalyam. Yeah. So, non-movingness of what? Chitta. Chittam. This is not sat chit, that chit. This is chittam, is the inner instrument. The mind is too active, too unfocused, too feisty to actually, live this knowledge. So the mind has to be brought to a pinpointed focus so that the knowledge has time to germinate and blossom in the heart. So that is chitta naishchalya. That is one problem. Then even before that is a kind of a secondary problem, tertiary problem. The secondary problem here, the immediate problem here, is that not a firm grasp over what has been taught for various reasons. And really speaking, all the reasons boil down to one. We love to reduce everything to one, correct? That's our, ball game, that's our bread and butter. So all this boils down to one thing. And what is that? What is that? Why is that? Why is the knowledge not taking time to firm up in the mind? Why is the knowledge not firm? Why is there vagueness? Why is there doubt? What is the reason? Raga Dvesha. That's all. One's own blocks, one's own inner infrastructure. And in other words, to put it in technical terms, antahkarana ashuddhi. Ashuddhi, impurities. Impure doesn't mean you have to have some soap or something like that. Impurity here is, certain pet peeves and certain longings, certain belongings, certain ways of being to which I am addicted, and certain ways of seeing things also to which I'm really hopelessly addicted, do not give me the inner space or the inner space to accommodate this vision. So basically this means I need what is called chitta shuddhi, chitta shuddhi and chitta naischalyam. These are the two ways where I help myself to a deepening encounter with this assimilation of this knowledge by these two mechanisms. One is an inner purification, a cleansing of the heart, so to speak, figuratively speaking. And the other one is the practicing of a single pointed focus. And the two together actually bring forth the gift of this teaching in a very real and a very tangible way, so that one stops asking the question, if I am Brahman, how come I don't feel it? This is what the prasada of these practices. A caveat, the practices do not produce the knowledge. Why?
Knowledge is not produced.
Knowledge is not produced, A. And the knowledge, if it is produced, is produced through a means of knowledge, correct? Knowledge is not a product. And when the knowledge is communicated, it is through a pramana, a means of knowledge. And really speaking, when we dissect this whole thing very, very, when we parse it very, very finely, when we split hairs, we find that knowledge is not being produced at all, even through the pramana. What is happening? The ignorance is being reduced or actually is being given the pink slip to leave. The ignorance is being dismissed. The ignorance is being fired through the pramana. The pramana which says Tattvamasi, you are that which is everything, is only affirming what you already are. It is not saying Tattvam Bhavishyasi, you are going to become that in another life or after you cast off this body. No. It is saying you already are what you seek to be. Correct? But then the Purva Pakshi says, objection, Your Honor. Or some other Purva Pakshi brings a stay order, this cannot be true. And what is that Purva Pakshi? Those voices within, which are the voices of despair, helplessness, hopelessness, fear, the voices of the unconscious, the voices of the shadow, ahankara, that speaks, that thinks itself to be real. If the shadow knows it's a shadow, then it's nothing to talk about. But here is the shadow demanding a cup of tea along with a visitor. Why, you brought only one? Then you hold the tea so that the teacup also casts a shadow and say, okay, that one is for you. What else to do? So when the non-reality starts to assume, take much more room in the heart than the reality, then the practices of firming up this knowledge, assimilating this knowledge are advised, because it's not that the practices produce the knowledge. We have to be very clear about it. The practices dispel the longings, certain practices. The practices also help to hone the mind so that one keeps repeating the meanings, re-seeing and repeating the words of the Upanishad, whose meanings you have studied. Where? in verses 1 to 12. The same things are being repeated to be able to assimilate it in a new way, you know. So this is Vedanta 301, 201, you know, this is what it is. And this is the answer to the question, I don't feel like I am Brahman. I know I am Brahman, but here something else is happening. There is a big gap between the cognition, which is supposedly, what is that, left brain? Right brain, correct? And then the feeling area of the brain is not convinced that it is Brahman, you know. It's like, this is what is called abhyasa, repetition. So what is being repeated? The words of the Upanishad whose meanings have already been ascertained in a teaching situation. But why not the words whose meanings have not been ascertained? Why not that? You know, try saying something. Gobbledygook, gobbledygook, what will happen? Nothing. Nothing will happen. So the meaning has to be seen repeatedly, because seeing it once has dispelled the ignorance, but has not dispelled the behavior connected to, which is an outcome of that ignorance. So the ignorance is gone, you know, but the behavior hasn't gone. It's like you're walking with crutches for 6 weeks. Leg was in plaster, correct? In a cast. And then even though the cast has been cast off, the person's gait has been affected by 6 weeks of walking on the crutches. And somehow one develops a fondness for those crutches because one is used to them. And then the first 2 days, the person, before getting up from the chair, what will they do? They will look around, where is the crutch? Because they are so used to it. So this is what is called habitual orientation. Yeah, an orientation to the habits that were formed during the phase of ignorance. But they are having difficulty being phased out. Why? Because they are unfazed by the fact that you have gained this knowledge. So they keep going and going. And for this sake, the Upanishad shifts now. And also this shift is appropriate because we are ending one chapter and beginning another. We are close to the end of one chapter. So it leaves no stone unturned to make sure that the assimilation of the vision is as total as the vision itself. So the next few verses, we'll talk about, you know, the means for gaining this chitta naishchalyam. Also, you know, like nididhyasanam, for removing the difficulties associated with assimilating this knowledge. Number 13. Vanheryatha yonigatasya murtihi न दृश्यते नैव च लिङ्गनाशः स भूय एवेन्धन यो निगृह्यः तदो भयं वै प्रणवेन देहे So there is an example given here. And what is the example? You know, fire. Fire is a very interesting example here, and it is going to be continued in the next couple of verses. One he of the fire, for the fire. Yatha, just as for the fire. Yoni gatasya murtihi na drishyate. Just as in the case of the fire, you don't see the cause of the fire. What is the cause of the fire? The wood, you know. When you see the fire, you're not immediately going to, your mind is not, you just are looking at the fire. Your mind is not going to the cause of the wood, which is the cause of the fire, which is the kindling or the wood. You're not immediately thinking of the wood as the cause of the fire. You're seeing the fire, its brightness, its light, its heat in its own entity as, itself. You're not seeing it as that which is a possibility in the wood, right? So when you see the presence of the fire, you don't immediately think of the presence of the wood, right? And then when you don't see the fire, let's say you just see some firewood stacked on the roadside when you're taking a walk. Can you say that there is no fire when you see the wood?
Yes.
Yes, you can, but actually the answer should be no, you cannot. Because the fire exists, according to this Upanishad, the fire exists as a potential even when you don't see. Linganashaha means even when you don't see the fire, the potential for the fire exists in the wood. Correct? Whether you see the fire or whether you do not see the fire. The potential for the fire exists in the wood. Whether that fire is blazing or whether that fire is a latent possibility to be quote unquote manifest when you rub that wood against a rough surface or another piece of wood. Then the spark ignites, right? So can you say that the spark was not there? No.
No.
You cannot say that the spark was absent. So the presence of the spark is there even when the wood is lying in an inert manner on the side of the road, right? And so therefore, this mantra says, so too, this body, here deha shouldn't be taken as body, the antakarana, that is called deha here. Deha literally means body, but here we are talking of the inner instrument, the chitta here, chittam. So too in the mind, the potential, what is the potential? That Tattvamasi potential, I am Brahman potential is there, that knowledge is there. Just like the kindling you cannot say is bereft of the presence of the fire. Similarly, this mind potentially has that Brahman there, it does. You cannot say it's not there. It's there in a subtle form. Crowded and clouded by one's behaviors. Viparita bhavana. It is there in such a subtle form. Because the inner psyche is crowded, cluttered by ragadveshas, tumbling all, like a closet which is full and you open the door, teenager's closet, then what happens? If you survive, then you are there to tell the tale of all the things that fell over you, right? So like that, the inner heart is, like there is tumbling, crumbling desires, fears, reactivity, all kinds of thoughts, jumbled. All kinds of fumbled, jumbled, mumbled, desires, clamoring for expression, that they are hiding this Brahman. So to speak, this Brahman means what? Knowledge of Brahman. They are hiding this knowledge because the poor knowledge has no space to express itself. It is claustrophobic. It's saying, I need air. Give me some time. Give me some air. This is not fair. Give me some air. And the poor thing is, muffled completely. Because all these longings and the ragas and dveshas reign supreme. The inner landscape is a jungle, huge jungle. And the poor ahankara is trying to do jungle gymnastics, swing from nerve to nerve. That's all it can do. Like Tarzan, that's all it is, some acrobatic, some kind of maintenance. And by the time you cut one part, another part is overgrown. Oh my God, so much upkeep. And so here, the potential is there. That knowledge is there as a potential. Which knowledge? The one which was gained from mantras 1 to 12. You have to keep going back to that. That knowledge is there as a potential. But unfortunately, it hasn't found expression. You know? Like a clogged drain, the desires don't have any place to go. They're just there, stagnant. And there is no space for this Brahman, for this knowledge of Brahman to express itself in one's demeanor, in one's behavior, in one's thoughts, in one's expression, in one's actions, so to speak. That one has gained this knowledge. There is no time, no space, because there is so much glamour and this clutter. And so what? It's kind of relieving to know that the presence of that kindling is there. Correct? Even though the wood is waterlogged by all the desires, there's that sinking feeling. Glub glub from the Ganapati Upanishad days. And so the wood is waterlogged and you don't even know how this fire can express itself. Maybe it will just come out as smoke. But still, the potential for fire is very much there. So too, this knowledge, the kindling of this knowledge is present in a very brief, encapsulated form. And what is that form? Om, whose meaning we saw earlier. Om is there. Om is at home, but it is difficult to find out where it is sitting and what it is doing. It is difficult to locate this Om. But even if you don't locate the Om, what is Om? Om is not a word. It's what it symbolizes. It symbolizes everything. It symbolizes the truth of the waker. Who is the waker? Me. It symbolizes the truth of the sleeper. Who? The neighbor? No, me. It symbolizes the truth of the dreamer. Who? Me. It symbolizes the truth of Ishvara, the whole Jagat and the Preritara. Preritrin. Who is that? Me. It symbolizes the formless Brahman, nameless formless Brahman, which is also me. So the Om is that kernel of truth, just like that kindling potential in the fire, ready to come out. When? After some churning. After some churning. Because the kindling also thoda effort lagta hai na. You have to put some effort. It's not come apne aap nahi aayega. It won't come by itself. You have to put some effort. And mind you have to know where the effort is put. The effort is not put at the level of trying to crank out the knowledge. If you try to crank out the knowledge, I've told you before, what does it do? It makes you cranky, that's all. You will not get it because it's not a product. That which is limitless is not a product, it's you. So the effort is there in trying to rid the heart of its longings, fears, desires. And the effort is there in trying to bring together, to summon forth this distracted mind, which like Rakshasas are going in every direction. 11th chapter of Gita says, Rakshamsi disho dhravanti, Arjuna saw in his state of, some kind of a, what is that, some special state that Krishna put him in so that he could see the whole cosmic, the whole cosmos he could see. And he says that I see all the directions. These Rakshasas are running in all directions. So the mind is like the Rakshasas, the Asuras, these demonic beings running in all different directions. So to gather the reins and to bring the mind back to the focus of what really is important, what really matters, and to tell the mind that, look, I have convinced myself that this knowledge is worth gaining. I have spent so much time sitting in class. It has to bear fruit now. I can't allow it to keep going business as usual. I have to make it my own. And so therefore, it's very nice to know that there is a kindling that I can use, that kindling. Because when I say the word Om, it should bring me back home to the truth of myself. So the Om is loaded with that power to bring me back. I may stray, but really speaking, how far can you go from Brahman? 1 mile, 2 mile? So the going is as though, right? Even in a cluttered mind, is there Brahman or not? Yes, clutter is Brahman, mind is Brahman. The one who is upset by the clutter also Brahman. But here we are talking of the enjoying the manifestation of this knowledge as oneself. And what does that mean? Being truly free of dread and sorrow. That is what it means. And so I have to make some space, do some housekeeping, so that there is space for this knowledge to come forth when I need it most. In moments and in times where I need it, I should be able to summon the classes, Shvetashvatara, where are you? Shvetashvatara should come running like the horse it is named after. Katha, come! Lord Yama should say, Atahu, I'm coming. Taitriya, where are you? Yes, coming. Vasanne, vasabhavati. All that should just come. We should just be able to summon it and it should come. And for that, there is an upaya, a resource. Upaya means a help, a resource. A sahaya is given and upaya is given. Roll all the Upanishads into one, like a carpet, And what is that? Om, that is it. So that Om is the kindling, really. And that Om helps putting the mind on Om, on a diet of Om, helps you to come back to this truth that you have spent years and years learning. It is not going to go in vain. And so, let us look at the verse a little more closely. See, yonigatasya vanhehe, means, yonigatasya means inside its source. Yatha, just as inside its source, latent in the source, vanhehe, of the fire, the form of the fire is not seen. What? In the wood, correct? And then, even though you cannot say that the fire is present, you cannot also say the fire is absent. That's what, Naivacha linganashaha. So you cannot, when you look at a piece of wood, can you say there is fire? No, you cannot say there is fire. But can you say there is no fire? You cannot say there is no fire, because fire as a possibility exists. So just like you cannot affirm the fire or deny the fire. Why cannot you deny the fire? It is explained in the third line. Sabhuya eva indhana yoni grihyaha means it can be reproduced again. In that same piece of wood, the fire can be reproduced again. So you cannot say it is not there. You cannot say it is there because you don't see it. You cannot say it is not there. Why? Because it can be produced, And similarly, tad ubhayam vai pranavena dehe. Pranavena dehe means similarly, ubhayam, tadva means similarly, tadvai, ubhayam, both, which both we'll see presently. Dehe, in the mind, not the body. Grihyate means is understood. Both is understood in the mind. What both? That in spite of all the garbage, I am Brahman. That. So there is coexistent internal garbage and Brahman both. So the presence of Brahman is not null and void, invalidated by the ashuddhi of the mind or the machinations of the mind. And then you cannot say Brahman is absent, correct? But then, seeing the state of the mind, you cannot say Brahman is present either. The Brahman means this knowledge, okay? Yeah. Brahman is always present. So you cannot say that this person has gone through 10 years of Vedanta. Why? Because the person is jumping up and down, is not able to show that knowledge, is not able to demonstrate or wear that knowledge as an ornament. Correct? Yeah. And so, but then you cannot say that knowledge is absent. Why? Because they have studied for 10 years. So then, just like this piece of wood and the kindling. And so now we don't want to spend too much time on this verse because I think you get the idea. This is just a precursor to what's going to come the next verse, which is really important. So I will just say this much, is that catch hold of the Om is the message of this verse. Okay? Yeah. So it is this, it encapsulates perfectly the dilemma of the person who has studied. Do I know? Yes. But how come I'm behaving like an idiot? This is what the whole thing is. It encapsulates the dilemma perfectly. Is there Om in me? Yes. But then Om has not found a home in me. Yes, that is also true. So then, what should we do to this latent pranava? Pranava here means Omkara. And this Om which has been assimilated, that Om whose meaning has been understood, what should we do? And so now an illustration is given, which is called Pranava Upasana, Pranavopasana. And it's an important illustration, and it's a very, it's a common illustration because this verse with a small change also appears in the Mundaka Upanishad. And so how to hone the mind to come back to this knowledge, take the help of the kindling called Om, correct? And so how to do that is given in the next verse. Swadeham aranim kritva
Swadeham aranim kritva
pranavanchottaranim
Pranavanchottaranim
ध्याननिर्मथनाभ्यासात्
Dhyananirmatanabhyasat
देवं पश्येन्निगूढवत्.
Devam pashyennigudhavat.
Very nice verse. So, and in the Mundakopanishad, the last part is different. Dhyana nirmathanabhyasat pasham dahati panditah. The pandita burns up the ropes that bind. Pandita means the knowledgeable person burns up the ropes of bondage. That is how it is. But here, a slightly different thing is given in keeping with what has gone before. So let us look at that. Swadeham, one's own body, but here body means what?
Antahkarana.
Very good. Antahkarana, one's own mind. Aranim kritva. Arani is a very interesting thing, It's an ancient way, a universally ancient way. They do it even in Africa. A universally ancient way of producing fire. So what do? You have two pieces of wood. One which has a slight indentation and the other one. And then you sometimes put a little piece of rope, a few strands of that dry rope or a hay or something. And then you have to rub it in a certain way till the kindling is produced. And then the bottom piece of wood is called, Adho Arani. Adho Arani means the bottom piece of wood. Yeah. And then the top piece of wood is called Uttara Arani. Uttara Arani and Adho Arani. Adho Arani and Uttara Arani. Okay. So Swadeham Aranim Kritva. Here they mean the bottom piece of wood. So your mind is the receptacle where the churning and the burning is going to take place. Yeah, you burn as you churn. Very nice. So the churning and the burning is going to take place where? That is the lower Arani. And what is that here? In the Darshtanta, in the exemplified, it is the mind. Understood? Are you with me or without me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, so the mind is the receptacle which is the context of the churning and the burning which is going to take place. And what kind of churning, etc., we'll see. And the Om, the syllable Om is what? The top piece of wood, which uses the mind as a churning, which is the churning rod, which uses the mind as a surface to churn. So when the Om is rubbing against the mind, Think of what happens to the poor, sad Ragadveshas.
They burn.
Yeah. Where will they? They run away like the Rakshasas in front of Krishna. They run away. Because here Omkara is pounding the Ragadveshas into pieces. Suddenly the image has changed to an apothecary's, thing where you have that, what is that? Mortar and pestle. So kind of similar. Yeah. So all the Ragadveshas, become mortal in the mortar and they die away. They die away because the Om has taken over. So some Ragadveshas come, I don't want to do this, I don't like this, why I'm always in this situation? Oh, okay. No, but why other people don't have this karma? Why only I have this karma? Oh. No, how come I do all the work and that idiot gets the credit? Oh, does it matter? Blink, blink, It puts you in the now. You try it. Even if you don't know the meaning, it puts you in the now because that's its power. Especially when you know the meaning, it cannot but drag you to the now from wherever you are. If you are dredging yourself in the past, or you have taken a dip into some kind of a, what should I say, Maya Sarovara, into a illusory lake in the future, a fanciful lake of the future. It brings you to the moment, to the now. Oh, gone, finished, a full stop, no commas after Om. It's a full stop. There's nothing that comes after it, except perhaps silence. So nothing comes after it. So that Om, what does it do is that it makes the Ragadveshas tired. Yeah. If they are trying to escape the churning, then also they run around, they are tired and they fall down. How much can you run? You keep running. I saw this movie once, and then there was this scrawny fellow in the boxing ring, and then there was this bada pahalwan, this huge, like a Mike Tyson type of chap in the ring. And the scrawny, thin fellow, who was like a toothpick. And he didn't know anything. He couldn't stand a chance. This other fellow was huge. He was like a wall compared to this fellow. So all he could do, it was some kind of a comical movie. So all he did was run inside the ring. See, he ran. And the other fellow ran after him, and said, wait, let me give you one. And he would try to give him one. This fellow would slip and run off again. So even the scrawny Ragadveshas. Why scrawny? Because we are talking of a mind of a Vedantin who has put them already on a diet and is not giving them enough to eat and drink. But still they are there, they are running around. And here comes the Om bludgeon and it's doing its job in the mind, wearing them out, tearing them out. And even if they are avoiding this mortar and they are running in circles, at some point they get tired and drop dead. They just drop dead. So how sure we can be of this Om. It's so amazing. So, Swadeham Aranim Kritva, make the mind into the bottom Arani and make the Om into that which churns, churns out the distraction. This is Chitta Naishchalyam and Chitta Shuddhi in one. Because it churns out the distraction. When you say Om, I told you are here and now. You are nowhere else. It's a perfect thing for ADD. When the mind goes, Om. That's all it is. And deliberately it is short. If you had to remember something, what is that longest word in that musical movie? What was that? What is that? Supercali. So if you had to remember something like that, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, you have to remember that. If that was the meaning of the word Om, forget it, Nobody will remember. Super what? forget. But here Om is deliberately brief, tiny. One, one syllable, 3 matras. That's it, Om. You cannot go wrong here. You cannot say, how do I spell Om? How do I pronounce Om? Even the people who do not know Sanskrit will not mispronounce one word in the Sanskrit language, and that is Om. Really. Cannot mispronounce it. You cannot, even if you try. And so, therefore what? Therefore it's a foolproof method of Chitta Shuddhi, any Chitta Shuddhi remaining to be done, any Chitta Naishchalyam remaining to be gained. Have no fear, Om is here. This is what the whole thing is. Om comes and Om takes over all of them, and provided you know how to churn, this is what it is. Yeah. Dhyana nirmathana abhyasat. Abhyasat, repetition. And in order to do repetition, one has to have some courage. Yeah, thoda sa. You have to have a little courage. Otherwise, you know what happens? You go into the mode of despair. After every Om, you keep asking, did anything happen? Om. Kuch hua? Om. Kya hua? Om. Something happened? Om. Am I the same? Om. Have I come home? Om. What comes next? Om. I don't think this is working. You see, this is where one goes. So here we have to bring in, what Upanishad, as I told you, is a lady of few words. She doesn't tell everything. We have to bring in a little things, few things to make this mantra make sense completely. And we have to bring that courage. Sahasam. Sahasa, that enthusiasm. Not like soda bottle enthusiasm. You open the soda can, what happens? And then flat. You flat line. And same thing, now New Year is coming. Resolution, I'm going to meditate every day for 48 hours a day. Wait, a day doesn't have 48 hours. This is the problem, overreaching. That's why none of the New Year resolutions function. This year make only one resolution. What is that? I will not make any more resolutions. That one will function, really. So really speaking, this overreaching, again the human mind wanting to get somewhere where it's not. So the two problems we have is overreaching. I want to immediately become Vyasa right now. I want to, model Adi Shankara right now. And then what happens, Before you start, all the courage drains out, like air from a tire. Gone, finished, flat. That is one problem. So therefore it says, Abhyasat. Abhyasat means through a steady, manageable regimen. All this is hidden in the meaning. Abhyasa doesn't mean repetition, just repetition. Through a steady, manageable regimen of enthusiastic practice with sustained levels of encouragement, courage, all those things which I help myself to. That is what is called abhyasa. Nirmathana means the constant rubbing, the wearing away of old ways of being, old beliefs, old, dead cells of attitudes. All gets just cleansed. And the mind gets a mirror-like shine which just reflects all that you are. So abhyasat, and kasya abhyasah, pranavasya abhyasah. And what kind of abhyasa? Dhyana nirmathanam, where the meditation upon the Om is the churning. And it's interesting that this produces fire. And how does this produce fire? What is this fire? The fire is just fire has light and fire has heat, correct? Fire destroys and it has light. So the light removes the ignorance or shows that the mind is a well-lit place. And the fire also destroys the ignorance. There is a burning that is taking place. So Pasham Dahati Panditaha. Mundakopanishad, the person burns away the bonds of ignorance. Or here, Devam Pashyati Nigudhavat, sees the hidden Bhagavan, hidden by the calamitous array of desires. Yeah, and all the emotions, the baggage of emotions. So hidden in the storage room called the mind, in a very haphazard way where everything is piled up. This Bhagavan that is hidden, whose darshan I want to have. And what is the Windex to show this Bhagavan? It's the Om. Cleans out all the dust, all the debris, it cleans out. More we will see next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. That was fun, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
The other day you were saying that if you only do Om,
Yeah.
then you cannot be in the world.
Yes. So therefore do Om Namah Shivaya.
Maybe just a little bit of Om. You could sneak in.
You can sneak in a few Oms, okay? Okay, permission granted. You can sneak in 11 Oms a day. Yeah. Ah, Shin was there. Nice. Very nice.